Hi everyone, welcome to our exploration of modern cloud infrastructure deployment with Terraform and Amazon EKS. Today we are diving into the seamless orchestration of an EKS cluster powered by Terraform's infrastructure as code magic. Terraform, the industry standard tool for building, changing, and versioning infrastructure safely and efficiently. With Terraform, we are able to codify our infrastructure requirements, enabling us to effortlessly create and manage complex cloud environments. But our journey doesn't end there. We are taking a step further by integrating our Terraform workflow into a CI/CD pipeline powered by Jenkins. Jenkins, the automation server beloved by our DevOps team worldwide for its flexibility and extensibility. By coupling Terraform with Jenkins, we are empowering ourselves to automate the deployment process, ensuring consistency and reliability every step of the way. And here's the best part. We are putting the power into your hands. With a click of a button, you can trigger the pipeline to deploy your EKS cluster in minutes. Hence, there is no more manual interventions or tedious setup procedures that is required. You just have to go with this just seamless integration, automated infrastructure deployment at your fingertips. So join us on this journey as we unlock the potential of Terraform and Jenkins, transforming the way we build and manage cloud infrastructure. Let's just get started. To make your job easy, what I've done is I've created a GitHub repository where I've placed all the files and folders that are required to set up this tutorial. So here you see there are three folders called Jenkins, Manifest, and Terraform. And we also have a file called installer.sh. I'll come to this part in a while. So in Jenkins folder, I've placed the Jenkins file that is required for you to set up this Jenkins. And in the Terraform folder, we have all the Terraform modules and Terraform files that are required to set up the EKS cluster. I'm going to explain all of them in a while. I'm just exploring the folder structure that I have created. Next, we have manifest file where we have deployment.yaml and service.yaml. What this is going to do is it is going to create a deployment and service for you. If you want to use this example, go ahead and use it, but I'm not going to use this in this demonstration. Instead, I'm going to create the pod manually and show you how it works, right? Apart from this, I have installer.sh where it is going to install your Kubernetes kubectl, Terraform, and also Jenkins on the Jenkins server. So now let's go ahead, log into our AWS console and create the Jenkins server that is required for our demonstration. So what I'll do is I'll go to AWS console, click on EC2, and I am using AWS US East 1, that is North Virginia region, for my demonstrations. So here, if you see there are 0 instances running, let me click on that and I'll click on launch instance. So here I'm going to name that as Jenkins-server, and I'm going to use Ubuntu as my server. So I'm going to select Ubuntu here, and next I'm going to use a T2 medium. If you are using a free tier account, make sure to select the instance type that is under free tier. But as this is my demonstration, I'm going to use T2 medium. Next, I'm going to select KP Mac. If you already have a key pair, go ahead and select it. But to keep it simple, I'm going to use KP Mac. That is a key pair that I've already created. But if you want to create it once more, you can just click on this create new key pair, provide the name, and it will download the key pair automatically. And network settings, I'm going to keep that as default. I'm not going to change anything here. And I'll just choose the one that I already have, the security group. I'll select I have a security group Linux SG. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to keep everything else as default, but I'm going to expand advanced details And here we have something called as user data or init script. So what it is going to do is whatever the script that you provide here, that will be run during the installation of the Ubuntu server. So I have created a file called installer.sh. Let me just go through what is this file doing, and let me just give you a brief on this. So if you see here, this is a script, shell script. First, I'm gonna update the dependencies, and also I'm gonna install OpenJDK11 JRE. This is the requirement for installing Jenkins on our server. So this script from here till here, it is going to install Jenkins. I'm using this link from the jenkins.io repository or the website, and what I'm doing is I'm just installing Jenkins here. So first I'm getting the files by using curl, and then I'm installing using Jenkins sudo apt get install Jenkins. So in the similar fashion, I'm also installing Terraform, because on the Jenkins server, we also need the Terraform because we are going to run our Terraform script. So now this is going to, I'm just following the same procedure. I'm getting all the required files and the dependencies from the HashiCorp website, and at the end I'm trying to install it by using sudo apt get install Terraform. And other than that, we also need Kubernetes installed on our Jenkins server. So for that, when I say Kubernetes, it is kubectl, don't get confused. So to do that, what I'm gonna do, I'm also following the same procedure. I'm getting the files that are required from the k8s.io repository, and then I'm just installing that by using sudo install. And at the end, I'm going to use something called as AWS CLI, which you already know, that is command line interface by AWS to interact with AWS resources. To install that, I'm going to use their own repository that they have. If you do not know, please go ahead and read about AWS CLI. Just Google it, type AWS CLI, and you will get more information on that as well. So I'm going to install a dependency called unzip, because that is not going to be there by default. And then I'm using curl to get this zip file, and then I'm unzipping that file, and then I'm installing via script. So all this is doing is install all the dependencies that are required for this particular demonstration. So what I'll do is I'll just hit on copy raw file, and I'll come over here and I'll just paste all the things here. Okay, once it is done, I'm just gonna click on launch instance, and it is going to create the EC2 instance with all the dependencies for us. So let's wait until the EC2 instance is created, and we have Jenkins, kubectl, and Terraform installed on that server. So I'll come back once the instance state changes from pending to running. All right, if you see here, the instance state has been changed to running right now, and that confirms that the Jenkins server is up and running. So what we will do next is to create the AWS access key and the secret key for the user. So what I'm going to do, I'll go to AWS IAM, and in there I'm going to create I'll just go to user, and I'm going to select the username here, and we will go ahead and create the access key. If you see here, I've already created the access key and the secret key ID for this one. So what I'll do is I'll just keep that in a safer place. So this is the one. You should in the production environment or in any of your environment, it is not recommended to show your access key and the secret key, but I'm just showcasing it for the demonstration purposes. But at the end, I'm going to delete all of the access key and the secret key, and I'm going to create a new one at the end after the demonstration. All right, so that is the second step that you need to do once you have your credentials. So this is where you create your access key and the secret key. All right, so there is another way to do it. So let's go to dashboard here, and if you go to users, you will come here, and you can also create a new user instead of using this one, and then create the access key and the secret key for that user. All right, so now let's go ahead and grab the public IP address of this server, and then let's see if the Jenkins is installed or not. Before grabbing the public IP, I would highly recommend you to check a few things. One is the inbound and the outbound rules for this one. So, for example, this Jenkins server operates on port 8080. So you need to make sure that port 8080 is open to all the entire world, basically 0.0.0.0/0. So in that way, you will be able to access your Jenkins server. If you do not have this access, it will time out saying the server is not reachable, right? So to make sure that you have enabled or opened 0 port 8080 on your security group. Now let's just grab the public IP, go to your favorite browser, paste the public IP along with 8080 and hit enter. Let's see if the Jenkins is installed or not. All right, if you see here, Jenkins has been installed successfully, but it is asking for the administrator password for the very first time. So if you want these details, go ahead and grab this path. Here you will have the administrator password. But if you are wondering how to get that, go to your Jenkins server, click on connect, and I'll just click on connect here. It will take you to the terminal for the of that particular Jenkins server, and then what you can do is you can just cat on that particular path and you will get the password and you can paste it here. So let's just do that. What I'll do is I'll just clear the screen and I'll say sudo and I'll say cat and paste that URL, the path, and I'll hit enter. If you see here, we have the password. Let's just copy that. I'll just copy and I'll go to the Jenkins URL and I'll paste it right here and I'll click on continue. Now I'll just say never and it will ask for the customized Jenkins page. It is asking if you want to install the suggested plugins or you will select and install your own plugins. So I'll just go ahead and select install the suggested plugins. So once you click on that, it is going to start the installation. If you see here, these are the recommended plugins and it is installing on itself. And you can see the progress here as well. All right, the installation of plugin is completed. Now it is asking for the creation of first admin user. So what I'll do is I'll just say Monkey Cloud, and I'll also say I'll just copy this and I'll paste it right here and I'll say amonkincloud@gmail.com and I'll hit save and continue. So it says username must only contain alphanumeric characters, underscore and dash. So what I'll do is I'll just say AMC. Okay, so short form of a Monkey Cloud, and I'll just say save and continue. Okay, it says the Jenkins URL is being provided here. This is just a public IP along with port 8080, and I'll just say save and finish. So what we have done so far is just configure the Jenkins according to our use case. So now if you see, this is our Jenkins dashboard. So to create the pipeline and to get started with Jenkins, this is where you land. Now let's go ahead and click on new item, and here we are going to create a pipeline. I'll just say pipeline, and I need to enter an item name. So what I'll do is I'll say Jenkins EKS. Okay, and I'll select pipeline here and I'll click on OK. So here it is asking for a few things. If you see here, this is where the place you need to provide all the scripts and the details of your pipeline, right? So here you will place the Groovy script that you require. Once you provide the script, it will start fetching the details, right? So let's do that later, but for now let's go to our repository, and there are a few things that I need to explain before we dive into the Jenkins Groovy creation. So now let's explore the Terraform folder. So I have three files here: eks.tf, provider.tf, and vpc.tf. So let's first explore what is provider.tf and what we have in here. So if you see here, as soon as I open Terraform provider.tf, I have few things on locals. So locals are just like your local variables that we have stored. As I mentioned, I'm working in the region US East 1. So what I've done is I've initialized a variable called region, and I've given that as a US East 1. And the name I'm using everywhere is a Monkey Cloud -cluster. And this is the CIDR range. I'll come to what is VPC CIDR and why do we need this later. So just remember that I'm adding these details here. In the same way, we have something called as availability zones in AWS. So I'm using that as well. And I'm separating public subnets and the private subnets. And this is public subnets and this is private subnet. And later I'm using intra subnets here, and I'm using the tags as well. But main important thing is we are interacting with AWS. So we need to initialize AWS as a provider, and hence the name provider.tf. Okay, so here I'm using provider as AWS here. This is the syntax of the Terraform provider module. And here we need to specify the region. So I am specifying the region as US East 1. Either you can go this way, or you can also mention a local.region. That will indirectly fetch the details from local, and in locals it is going to take from the region. Okay, I've done that in the other file, so let's see that as well. So this is about provider.tf. Now let's go to vpc.tf. So I'll just open vpc.tf. Let's explore what we have done. In vpc.tf, I'm using a module called VPC. If you have queries or questions, what you can do is Terraform. You can just go ahead and use Terraform VPC module, and it will give the very first link. If you open that, this is the module that we are trying to use, right? So it is verified by Terraform AWS. And if you want to verify the source code of this, you can just go to this block of code. You can just click on this GitHub repository, and you have something called as example folders. Basically, they will give you the example of the things that you are configuring. I just went ahead inside this complete folder, and here I'm just using the main.tf, right? So here we have something called as VPC module, and this is what I'm trying to use in my example as well. Okay, so let me go back to the code here. If you see, I'm just using the source as this one. I just grabbed it from the Terraform module, so I'm just using that. And the version that I'm using is 4.0, and name. I'm just grabbing the name from the local .name. If you remember, we have something called as local variables configured in the provider.tf, and in there I've specified something called as name. So I'm grabbing that details there. Okay. Next, CIDR, I mentioned that we have something called as VPC CIDR that is mentioned in the provider.tf, and I'm just fetching that details in here. Okay. ASIS, I'm specifying this one. I'm getting it from the local variables again. For the private subnet as well, I'm doing the same. The same things has been done for the private, public, and intra subnets. Next, there is something called as enable NAT gateway. The answer can be either true or false. Basically, it will create the NAT gateway for you if you set it as true. If you set it as false, it is not going to create the NAT gateway. And later I'm using these tags for my simplicity. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do with in this file called vpc.tf, where it is going to create the VPC for our EKS cluster. So the CIDR range, we require public subnets, we require private subnets, we also require intra subnets and also NAT gateway. So we are getting all these details. Okay, now let me go ahead and introduce you to the main Terraform file, that is eks.tf. So this is where the exact demonstration of this particular video comes in. Here we are actually creating the EKS cluster. Just like we did for Terraform VPC module, what you can do is you can just go and change this Terraform VPC to EKS. So if you go here, we have Terraform EKS module, and this is what I've referred, and this is the source code. You can just click on this GitHub repo. And here also we have something called as examples. And here I'm using this one, EKS managed node group. And in that I'm using main.tf. And this is what even I am using. So from EKS module I'm using. But what I've done is I've removed few things which are not required for this demonstration. Okay. So if you see here, module, I'm using EKS. The source is this one, the version is this one, and the cluster name, I'm grabbing it again from the local module that we have initialized. And cluster endpoint public access, I'm setting it to true so that the cluster is accessible to the public as well. Next, these are few cluster add-ons that I've given. Core DNS, I'm setting it to most recent as true. Proxy, I'm setting it to true. VPC CNI, I'm setting it to true again. So VPC, it is asking, so I've given the same VPC model that we have created in the previous step, that is vpc.tf. Subnet IDs, I'm getting it from the module VPC and private subnets, and also control plane subnets, I'm giving the intra subnets. Okay, next I'm also creating EKS managed groups here. So I'm specifying the AMI type as this one and instance type of m5.large. So again, it is asking if I want to attach the cluster primary security group. I'm saying yes, so it is going to attach the cluster primary security group. At the end, I'm also creating EKS managed node groups. So this is the configuration of EKS managed node groups. Here I'm giving the minimum size as 1. So maximum size is 2, and the desired size is 1. So as soon as I create the cluster, the EKS managed node groups will be in the desired state, that is 1. So if it requires, it will auto scale to maximum size, that is 2. And always it will make sure to have one node group that is always available. Right. So these are few tags that I've used, and these are the instance types that I'm using for the managed node group, that is t3.large. Capacity type, I'm using spot instances so that I can save some money on cost as well. So make sure you have sufficient AWS credits in your account to run this demonstration, because or else you can also change the configuration a bit and then go ahead with the demonstration. Okay, I hope the explanation of the Terraform modules and files are clear to you. Now without further ado, let's go ahead and explore what we have to do in the Jenkins repository. Okay, so before adding the script here, so the Groovy script, to interact with Jenkins, we have a freestyle project, or we also can do that by using the Groovy script. So if you're not familiar with Groovy, it is very simple. Spend half an hour on Groovy script writing. You'll be able to understand the Groovy script. Okay, I'll just explain a bit so that you will be familiar with Groovy as well. So before that, what we need to do is we need to create the secrets. I mentioned that we are interacting with AWS resources, right? EKS is AWS resources. So I need to interact with Amazon or AWS resources. How do we do that? So as I mentioned, we got this AWS secret key and access key. So we need to create a secret for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this and I'll go back to my Jenkins here. So I'll just go to dashboard here. And here we have something called as manage Jenkins. I'm going to click on manage Jenkins. So here I'm suspecting it should be in here credentials. Okay, yeah. So just come over here under credentials, then just click on global. Then we need to click on add credential. So I'll just click on add credential. So here the kind is this one, secret text. So I'm going to select secret text. So what I'm gonna do is it is asking for the secret, so provide the name of the secret. Sorry, ID should be this one, AWS secret key ID. So the corresponding value you can copy here. This is the value, so I'll copy that and I'll remove this one and I'll paste it here. So whatever the things that you copy, make sure. So I'll also add the same description, AWS secret key ID, and I'll just click on create. So that is created. Now let's do the same thing again. Let's click on add credential. I'll select a secret text. Again, I'll have to copy the secret from here. I'll just copy this, the second one, and I'll paste that as AWS secret access key. And I'll do the same for the description as well. Now I'll go back and copy the actual secret itself. So I'll come back here and I'll paste that here and I'll click on create. So this we have created global credentials or the secrets in the Jenkins itself. Now let me go to dashboard. Now we have initialized to create the pipeline, that is Jenkins EKS. So let's click on that and I'll say configure. Okay, let's come all the way down. Here is a script. So what I'll do is I'll just explain the script that we have for the Jenkins pipeline, right? So I have cloned the repository so that I can explain it to you in the VS Code. So I'll just go to Jenkins pipeline. Okay, so this is the exact Groovy script that we need to write in order for this pipeline to be created. So if you see here, this is just a JSON, and if you see here, we have something called as pipeline. For creating a pipeline, you need to have a variable or a template called pipeline, and it should end with a flower bracket and also end with a flower bracket. And inside that, I'm specifying agent as any. I'm using some environment variables, and for that I'm going to use the flower braces, and inside that I'm going to specify all the details. So now if you're asking what is a AWS access key, if you remember, right now we created a credential in our Jenkins server, and that is fetching the details here. Again, the same thing goes with AWS secret access key. It is fetching from the credential that we stored in the Jenkins server. Okay. Later, we are setting another environment variable, that is AWS default region. I'm setting that as US East 1. So these are all the different stages that we have in the Jenkins pipeline. The first stage is to check out the SCM or the source code management. So what we need to do is first we'll get this one, and then we will use the pipeline syntax that we get in the Jenkins, and we will configure this. Okay, I'll show you that as well. So what we'll do is let's just copy until here. Okay, so let's go back to our Jenkins. Okay, I'll just paste that here. So we are done until here. So what I'll do is I'll just hit enter, and I'll just make sure to add or complete the pipeline script so that we are not missing on it anywhere. So now if you see, we are yet to configure this line. So what we will do is we will click on pipeline syntax, and I'll open it in the new tab. So here if you see, we have a few sample steps that we already get, but here we will just use git, or let's say get. Okay, we just need to use checkout here, checkout from the version controls tool. So we will select that, and we need to select the source code management. In our case it is git, so I'll select that. We need to provide the repository URL as well. So let me go back to my repo where the Terraform file and all those things exist. So I'll just click on code, and I'll copy the HTTPS here, and I'll paste that here. Okay, so as this is my public repository, I don't have to specify the credential, but in case of private repository, you need to provide the credentials as well, so that it will authenticate with the repository. Now if you see here, I'm operating on main branch, so I need to change this as well. So instead of master, I'll just say main. Okay, so I'll just leave everything as is, and I'll just click on generate pipeline script. So this is going to give this script for us. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this and I'll go here and I'll just remove this part of code and I'll just paste that. Okay, so this looks good to me. So next what we do is we'll just click on apply and we'll just save this. Okay, so now how do we proceed? So we'll just click on build now. Let's see what happens to our pipeline. So basically it needs to check out from the GitHub and let's see if that is happening or if the pipeline itself is failing or what. So now if I see here, I see success. If I'll just open this one, we will see the logs for all the things that are happened. So if you see here, no credentials specified. As I mentioned, this is a repository without credential. This is a public repository, so we don't have to specify that. And if you see here, we saw a success of finished as we saw the status as success. Now let's do the same thing. Let's go on building this one. So let's go to configure this again. So initially, how will you work with Terraform? Once you have your code, what will you do? You will go ahead and run Terraform init, right? So with that, will go ahead and install all the dependencies that are required. It will also fetch the details from the AWS because that is our provider, and then it will keep everything ready. And once you do that, you will have the Terraform code initialized. Then you will go ahead and run Terraform plan, which will give you the entire thing that it is going to create in your AWS account. And then finally, you will go ahead and click on, or you will go ahead and proceed to creating the entire resources. So to do that, we will go ahead and utilize different stages, right? So let me do the same thing here as well. Let me go back to my code here. So first step, we did the checkout SCM. Next, as I mentioned, we need to go ahead and initialize the Terraform. So to do that, I need to run a command called Terraform init, right? So I should be in a folder called Terraform, and in there I just need to run a script called Terraform init. So it is going to initialize everything. At the end, I also need to validate if Terraform is the build it is going to create at the end is correct or not. So for that, I need to validate by running Terraform validate. So at the end, I'm going to preview all the infrastructure. So whatever it is creating, it is as expected or what. So to do that, I'm going to run Terraform plan. So this is a command to do that. And at the end, if I want to go ahead and create the Terraform a script, or if I want to go ahead and create the resources, I just need to run Terraform apply. So what I've done is I've just made it more interactive. Let's say you are running it in the production environment, and at the end someone has to approve it. Let's say your manager need to approve before creating any resources. In that case, what you can do is you can create a variable called action, and in that action you can either mention apply and destroy. So if you select action as apply, it is going to create the resources. If you select the variable as destroy, it is going to delete your resources, right? And in the same way, after planning, so we need to say whether to proceed and create the resources or just abort it. So to do that, what I've done is I've just created a variable called approve, and if I click on approve and proceed, then it is going to create the resources. If not, it will stay right there. Okay, so this is the entire thing that you have to do. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll just copy from stage initializing Terraform till the very end, and I'll just paste it in the Jenkins URLs. Okay, so that it is not confusing to you. So I just have to remove these two lines, two braces, and I'll just paste it right here. Okay, so this is what it is. Okay, with all of this configured, so let me go back here. Sorry, I'll just remove these two lines for you, and I'll just enter here, and I'll paste the same code again, and I'll just click on apply, and I'll just save it. Okay, again, we need to do two things here. We need to configure one more thing before we proceed. So now if I have to parameterize, that is when I select approve, and if it needs to go ahead and create the resources, and it needs to select the action based on my inputs, right? So to do that, what I'll do, I'll just copy this action and I'll go back to my Jenkins, and here I'll select this project is parameterized. I select that, and action, what I'll do is I'll just cancel this, and I'll click on add parameter, and I'll say choice parameter here, and I'll say give the name that I gave in the pipeline. I'll just select the same thing, action, and here I'll just say apply, and also I'll give destroy. Okay, and once you do that, you have everything ready. You can just click on apply and you can save it. Now if you go ahead and see this, it has changed to build with parameters, and if you click on that, you will see action whether to apply or destroy, right? So if you go ahead and select with apply, it is going to apply the apply the Terraform module, and it is going to create the AWS resources. And if you click on destroy, it is going to destroy your resources. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and click on select the apply here, and I'll click on build. Let's see what it is going to happen. To follow this, right, you can just click on this in progress, and you can follow what is happening in the background. If there is any errors, you can just track it right there and just resolve the errors and proceed. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just click on this. Let's see what is happening. If you see here, it initializes the provider plugins. It is initializing the modules. Basically, it is running Terraform init, if you see here. Now let's see what has happened. Now it is running Terraform validate, because that is our second step. If you see here, after Terraform init, we are running Terraform validate. So it is validating here. Let's see what has happened. It is giving success. Validations are done. Next, it is going to run Terraform plan. So that is our third step. If you see here, Terraform plan. Okay, now let's go here. Let's see what is happening. It is going to create so many resources. Let's go all the way down. So these are the things that we have specified in the .tf file. Okay, let's come all the way down here. And if you see here, it has failed with a error with message called failure. So let's see what was the issue here. So if I go all the way up here, if you see here, there is an error called name prefix to be range 1 to 38, got a Monkey Cloud EKS. Basically what it is saying is the name that we have given, that is a Monkey Cloud cluster WG EKS node group, it is too lengthy. It should be within 1 to 38, right? So let's go back to our code. So this is our debugging. How do we proceed, right? So let's go to Terraform. I know where that code is. It is under EKS. If I see here, this is where I've given, right, a Monkey Cloud cluster WG. So what I'll do is, instead of giving that such a lengthy name, I'll just remove this off, and I'll say AMC, and I'll commit the changes. I'll just click on commit changes, and now if you see, we just have AMC cluster WG. Let's go ahead and run the same Jenkins pipeline again, so we should not face the same issue again. Okay, let me go back to Jenkins EKS, and let's just run with build parameters again, and I'll just click on apply and build. Again, it will pick up from whatever is left out. It is initializing Terraform. It is running Terraform validate. Now let's see, we will see Terraform plan. So if you see here, it is going and planning, and it is going to show us all the details. Okay, now if you see here, this is where the real task comes in. So as I mentioned in the code, if you see here, we have input message approve or proceed. So I need to approve this. If I do not, it will abort. So I need to either click on proceed or abort. If I click on proceed, it is going to run this stage. That is, it is going to apply based on the action. the action that we selected was to create or to apply. So now it is going ahead and creating the resources. So it will take more than 10 to 15 minutes to create the EKS cluster. Once it is done, the pipeline will succeed, and it will say the status as success. So let's wait for the pipeline to complete, and I'll come back once it is done. All right. If you see the status here, it says finished and the status is success. And we will also see the message saying apply complete. We created 62 resources and 0 changed and 0 destroyed. Now to verify this, what we'll do is let's go back to our AWS console and let's go to EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service. And here we should be seeing a cluster by the name a Mountain Cloud cluster. So now if you see here, we have a cluster with the name Mountain Cloud, which is active, and the version of Kubernetes is 1.29 and provider is EKS. Let me click on this. And if I go to cluster resources, we see these things. And let's go to add-ons. Basically, we added 3 add-ons, that is VPC, CNI, kubeproxy, and core DNS. Those are also existing. Let's go to compute, and we will see node group with the name AMC cluster WG that is also in place. So this confirms that our Kubernetes cluster is up and running. Now let's interact with this Kubernetes cluster. To do that, you will have to first run this command. I'll just copy this. I've added this in the README file so that it will be easily accessible to as well. So you just have to run. Let me paste that first here. AWS EKS. We are just updating the kube config here, and we are specifying the region as US East 1, and the name of the cluster is a Mountain Cloud cluster. Now if I hit run, it will just update the config, the kube config. If you see here, we got a message saying updated context, and this is the ARN in this particular config, right? So now let me clear the screen for you. I'll just say kubectl get pods. Let's see if there are any pods that are running. Okay. Now let's wait for the response. I don't think there are pods. So if you see here, no resources found in the default namespace. Now let's go ahead and create the pod. So to do that, we just need to run kubectl. Okay. So I'll just say kubectl run, and I'll just name that as nginx, nginx. And I'll specify the image as nginx again. Let me hit enter, and this is going to create a pod with the name nginx. Now let's just run the same command, that is kubectl get pods, and you should be seeing a pod by the name nginx, right? So this is how you create an EKS cluster and create a pod on that EKS cluster using Terraform and also using Jenkins. Now let me show you another cool thing with this infrastructure, right? So let me go back to the pipeline. Let me go all the way up. Okay, let's go to Jenkins EKS. Now let's say I want to destroy this infrastructure. So all you have to do is click on build with parameters, and instead of apply, select destroy and click on build. So this is going to destroy your resources. So this is going to remove all the things that you have created from this demonstration. So it will take another 10 to 15 minutes to destroy the resources. After destroying the EKS cluster, do not forget to remove or destroy your EC2 instance or the Jenkins server, right? So that is all I had for this demonstration. I hope you enjoyed learning along with me. If you're liking the content that I'm creating, please consider subscribing and share it among your friends. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one with a new demonstration. Until then, take care. Bye bye.